Tara, I wonder if you can sort of tell me how much what Trump said is new. I mean, the line from the press secretary had simply been that he had a falling out with Epstein because Epstein was a creep. I don't know that we'd heard the specificity with which Trump decided he was a creep. It was because he was, quote, stealing employees from the spa, and that they included. That's not true. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, I have to interject on this because when I heard that, it's just not true. I worked very closely with Virginia Giuffre. If you listen to Broken, Jeffrey Epstein, we traveled all over the country together trying to find people who could corroborate her story. And in the actual podcast, we find someone who recalls when she was found at Mar-a-Lago. And by the way, it wasn't Epstein, it was Ghislaine Maxwell, the woman he's considering setting free, who actually procured Virginia. But they remained friends during that time. And Virginia told me that she met Donald Trump through Jeffrey Epstein. And Virginia was only with Epstein from 2000 to 2002. And there are pictures of Jeffrey and Trump together in that year 2000. Donald Trump praised Jeffrey Epstein, said he was a terrific guy. Remember that famous New York Magazine quote? That was at the time when he claimed that he was so furious about stealing Virginia Giuffre. The timeline doesn't add up. It doesn't reflect any of the reporting that I've seen. And also, Donald Trump was deposed by one of the victims, the lawyers for the victims, Brad Edwards. And when he told the story, it was over real estate. It was over a piece of property, Palm Beach waterfront property. They got in a bidding war. And because of it, Trump had to pay more. He ended up having to pay over $40 million for a property ironically called the House of Friendship. And he was furious at Epstein. He called him up and he cursed him out over it. And that was the end of their friendship. And that was in 2004. It just doesn't line up. And it doesn't make any sense at all.
And if you could just remind us, I mean, Trump has either been reminded or remembers Virginia. Tell us her story.
I'm not sure that he necessarily remembers her. I mean, she told me that she was never trafficked to Donald Trump. But she was very critical in the operation. I mean, in the sense that she was a sex slave to Epstein from the ages of 16 to 18. And she was there and basically passed around to his friends, like she said, like a fruit on a fruit platter. And so she saw a lot. She traveled all over the world with him. She's all over the flight logs with all of these powerful men. She was trafficked to powerful men. And she came forward about Prince Andrew. She was one of the first victims to be public back in 2011. Ghislaine Maxwell perjured herself twice in the case against Virginia Roberts Giuffre. But, even in the case of Virginia, I just want to point out again for anyone who says that Ghislaine deserves any sort of clemency, when Virginia ended up in Epstein's house, it was Ghislaine who took her panties off. That was the first person who touched her. It was Ghislaine who brought her there. It was Ghislaine who found her at Mar-a-Lago. And that was the same case with Annie Farmer. It was Ghislaine who touched her first. And I think any sort of idea that Ghislaine was just some sort of like victim, as they're saying on Newsmax and other places, is absurd. She was a pedophile. She did the exact same thing. And this whole idea that President Trump was upset about it at the time is absurd.
What is, Tara, your best understanding of why MAGA seems to exonerate Ghislaine Maxwell's sexual abuse of these girls? Are they unaware of it? Do they not believe it? I mean, she sounds like the sexual abuser that Epstein was.
It's like, exactly. It's like they don't want to hear these stories. I just interviewed Annie Farmer for my podcast, and Annie was very explicit in explaining this. She testified in the case about how she would have never ended up there. Ghislaine literally got on the phone with Annie Farmer's mother and convinced her that it was okay for her daughter to go to this ranch, Zorro Ranch, because she had promised them that they were going to pay for the tuition for their daughter. I mean, this is, they preyed on children. The houseman that I spoke to for Epstein, Juan Alessi, he worked for him since the 1990s. He said that their ritual was to drive around and for Ghislaine Maxwell to look for 3 girls for Jeffrey Epstein per day to satisfy his needs. I mean, this is a predator. And then once she got them in the door, she was involved in the sexual acts. And I don't think they want to hear this. They want to create the impression that she is somehow absolved of all of this. all of these girls, especially the young ones, they have the same exact story because it was Glenn and the grooming of a woman bringing them in. They would have never showed up on a 50-year-old's doorsteps if it wasn't for an adult, posh woman who did not look like a madam. I mean, she's wearing Ralph Lauren. She went to Oxford. Her father was a press baron. He owned the New York Daily News, the Daily Mirror. Incredibly posh. Has a little, Yorkshire Terrier, Max, he was called, and they would drive around in a chauffeured vehicle. And she said, "Oh, you're beautiful. I'm going to make you a model. I know Les Wexner," who she did know, who owned Victoria's Secret. It was all very credible. And then she trapped them and also molested them. And I feel like that needs to be told more and more, is that she was involved in the sexual pedophilia as well.
Tara, what is your theory behind why Trump is talking about these chapters and these people by name and telling these stories that, based on your reporting, are not true?
I have no idea, because the timeline, it just proves that there's pictures, there's quotes, there's so many things to suggest that if he really believes that telling the story that the procuring of Virginia was what truly offended him, then why did he continue to stay in Epstein's circle during that period of time from 2000 to 2002? Why did they break up in 2004?
Yeah, let me bring Sam and Claire into the conversation. I mean, Sam Stein, all of us have covered Trump scandals and marveled really that they don't stick to him. This one is the first barnacle, right? He can't pull it off. It is stuck on him, and he seems to be trying, I guess, to make it go away by offering new and textured explanations. But to anyone that's covered this story over the years, they're clearly not rooted either in recollections that are accurate or in the truth. Your sense of what he's doing and why he's talking about this on Air Force One today?
Well, it's not that he's trying to rip off the barnacle. It seems like he's adding new ones on a daily or weekly basis, right? At first it's, maybe Barack Obama or James Comey wrote all these files. We can't trust them anyway, which is a deep offense to people who saw through it as a complete diversion. And then this today, I think, is kind of a shocking statement if you just step back. And of course, as you noted, talking about these people as if they're his property. We're talking about 16-year-olds, completely mangling the actual sequence of events. As Tara rightfully notes, I mean, his comments to New York Magazine about how great a guy Epstein was 2 years after Virginia and Maxwell met at Mar-a-Lago. So it didn't make any sense. And all it does is, frankly, invite more scrutiny and questions about what exactly is happening here. Why is he acting so weird? Why are his explanations for his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein combusting? Why are they changing? Why won't he just release the files, right? That's obviously what would get him through this, is if they had a full disclosure, but because he's so adamant that they're not going to, it just invites more questions. And I'll just say the last point, the sort of dichotomy that's happening in this current moment, where he's talking about Virginia Giuffre as property that Jeffrey Epstein stole, and Ghislaine Maxwell, who Virginia said in a subsequent interview was the actual monster of this operation, not Epstein. She said Maxwell was more monstrous than Epstein. So all this is happening at the same time that they're almost rehabilitating Maxwell's image, floating the idea that she might get a pardon, dancing around the idea that she could get immunity for her testimony. I mean, it's creating this incredibly uncomfortable dichotomy in which they are aligning themselves with the monster and maligning the victim. And, will he get through this scandal as he has every prior scandal of his political career? Possibly, probably, I don't know. I mean, but it's unequivocally true that this has now been 3.5, 4 weeks of this storyline, and he keeps saying things that invite more scrutiny.